The signal from the void. The observation deck of Station Kepler 9 hummed with nervous energy as Commander Elena Vasquez stared at the holographic display floating before her. 300 systems. Gone. Just like that. The reclaimers had swept through the outer territories of the Galactic Coalition like a forest fire, leaving nothing but silence and debris in their wake. Elena's reflection in the transparent aluminum viewport showed a woman who had aged 10 years in the past 2 months. Her dark hair, usually pulled back in a neat bun, now had visible streaks of silver. The lines around her eyes had deepened. She carried the weight of billions of displaced souls on her shoulders, and it showed in every tired movement. Behind her, the coalition representatives argued in hushed tones. They always argued. Words were their weapons, diplomacy their shield. But words could not stop the reclaimers. Peaceful resolutions meant nothing to an enemy that refused to communicate, that simply arrived and consumed everything in their path. The reclaimers were unlike anything the coalition had encountered in 5,000 years of spacefaring civilization. Their ships were organic nightmares, grown rather than built, pulsing with dark energy that seemed to feed on light itself. They moved through space like predators, efficient and merciless. Every attempt at contact had been met with silence. Every defensive line had been broken. Every evacuation had been too slow to save everyone. Ambassador Krell of the Ventari species approached Elena, his crystalline form refracting the station's lights into rainbow patterns on the walls. His people communicated through light and sound, and right now his colors pulsed with deep anxiety. Commander Vasquez, we must discuss evacuation protocols. The latest projections show the reclaimers will reach the core systems within 60 days. Perhaps less. Elena did not turn from the viewport. She had heard variations of this conversation a dozen times. Evacuate where, Ambassador? Every system capable of supporting life is already overcrowded with refugees. We are running out of space, food, and hope. The Zenthari representative, a being of pure energy contained within a specialized suit, floated closer. Then we must surrender. Offer them whatever they want. Surely they have some goal, some purpose beyond simple destruction. They do not take prisoners. Elena's voice was flat, emotionless. She had learned to bury her feelings deep when discussing casualty reports. Our reconnaissance drones confirmed it. They strip planets of all biological matter and move on. They do not colonize. They do not occupy. They simply consume and continue. The observation deck fell silent. In the distance, another refugee convoy approached the station, hundreds of vessels limping through space with failing engines and desperate passengers. Elena watched them come, knowing the station was already beyond capacity. They would fit them in somehow. They always did. But for how long? High Counselor Merrickx entered the room, his multiple appendages moving in agitation. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. He had guided the coalition through wars, plagues, and political upheavals. But this was different. This was extinction staring them in the face. I have consulted the ancient archives, he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority and desperation. There is one option we have not considered. Elena finally turned from the viewport. She had worked with Merrickx long enough to know when he was serious. What option? Merrickx activated a small device he carried. A hologram appeared, showing an ancient structure buried deep in the Coalition archives. The beacon of last resort. It was created by the first builders, the civilization that preceded all of us. It can send a signal across the entire galaxy, reaching even the most distant and isolated systems. The room erupted in objections immediately. Ambassador Krell's lights flashed in alarm. That beacon is forbidden for good reason. It would expose our location to every species in the galaxy. Some of them are dangerous. Some refuse contact because they are too violent, too unpredictable. Worse than the reclaimers? Elena asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. The Zenthari representative pulsed with agitation. There are civilizations we have deliberately avoided. Deathworld species. Races that evolved in conditions so extreme they developed differently from us. They are aggressive, territorial, and potentially hostile. The restricted zones exist for everyone's safety. Elena moved to the center of the room, commanding attention. I have read the files on these restricted zones. Earth. Crater Prime. Vex 9. Worlds where gravity crushes, where predators rule, where survival requires constant violence. We marked them as too dangerous for contact because we feared what they might do if they reached the stars. Exactly, Krell said. We do not know what they will do if we call them. Elena looked at each representative in turn. But we know what the Reclaimers will do. They will kill us all. Every single one of us. Our children, our cultures, our histories. Everything we have built over millennia will be erased. At least with the beacon, we have a chance. The debate lasted for hours. Some argued for evacuation. Some argued for surrender. Some argued for fighting with what little they had left. But Elena's logic was irrefutable. They were going to die anyway. The beacon offered the only possibility of survival, even if that possibility came wrapped in uncertainty and potential danger. Finally, as another distant explosion marked another failed defensive line, the vote was called. By the narrowest of margins, the decision was made. They would activate the beacon. They would call for help from the dangerous corners of the galaxy. They would invite the unknown into their dying civilization and hope it came as a savior rather than another executioner. Elena stood before the beacon's control panel 3 hours later. The device was ancient beyond measure, covered in symbols no living being could fully translate. But the controls were intuitive enough. A simple activation sequence. A broadcast on all known frequencies and some that were purely theoretical. The message would reach across the galaxy in a wave of quantum entanglement, arriving everywhere simultaneously. She had composed the message herself. No flowery language. No political nuance. Just facts. Their location. The nature of the threat. Casualty numbers. A simple plea for military assistance. Help us. We are dying. Her hand hovered over the activation switch. This could be the moment everything changed. Or it could be the moment they invited something worse than the Reclaimers into their space. She thought of her daughter, safe in the inner systems for now. She thought of all the children across the coalition, playing in corridors designed for adults, not understanding why their homes were gone. Elena pressed the switch. The beacon activated with no dramatic display. No lights. No sounds. Just a subtle shift in the air as quantum particles danced and reality bent slightly around the ancient device. The signal spread outward at speeds that defied conventional physics, touching every star, every planet, every corner of the galaxy within minutes. And then they waited. Days passed with agonizing slowness. The Reclaimers advanced. More systems fell. The coalition fleet gathered for what everyone knew would be a final stand. Admiral Chen commanded the defense, positioning every available ship in a desperate formation around the core worlds. It would not be enough. Everyone knew it. But they would try anyway because surrender was not in their nature, even for species that had spent millennia choosing peace over war. Elena spent those days coordinating refugee movements and trying to find space for the endless stream of displaced civilians. She worked 18-hour shifts, collapsing into sleep only when her body forced her to. She did not let herself think about the beacon. About whether anyone heard. About whether help would come. She focused on the immediate problems because they were solvable. The bigger questions had no answers yet. On the 7th day, the sensors detected something. Elena was reviewing supply reports when the alert sounded. She ran to the command center, her heart pounding. The duty officer looked pale. "Commander, we have multiple contacts dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Unknown configuration. Unknown origin. They are not reclaimers. Show me. The holographic display populated with data. 37 vessels had appeared at the edge of the system. They were massive, larger than anything in the Coalition database. But it was their design that made Elena's breath catch. These ships were not elegant curves and smooth surfaces like Coalition vessels. They were angular, brutal, covered in armor plating and weapons systems. They looked like they had been built in a forge of war. Can we communicate? Elena asked. They are hailing us now, the communications officer said. Audio and visual. They are not hiding their capabilities. Put them through. The screen flickered to life. Elena found herself looking at a being she had only seen in restricted files. A human. The woman on the screen was tall and broad-shouldered, her body clearly adapted to high-gravity conditions. She wore a military uniform covered in insignia Elena did not recognize. Her eyes were sharp and calculating, scanning the command center even through the video link. This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the Terran Defense Fleet. The human's voice was clear and direct, no translation lag. We received your distress call. Where do you need us? Deathworld Doctrine. Elena stared at the human admiral for a long moment before finding her voice. Commander Elena Vasquez of the Galactic Coalition. We are grateful for your response, Admiral Mitchell. The enemy fleet designated as reclaimers will reach our defensive positions within 36 hours. We have 73 ships remaining. Intelligence estimates the reclaimers have over 300 vessels. Admiral Mitchell's expression did not change. She simply nodded as if Elena had reported weather conditions rather than overwhelming odds. Understood. We will need to dock and review tactical data. I am sending coordinates for our command ship. The Indomitable can accommodate your senior staff. Elena felt Ambassador Krell move closer, his crystalline form pulsing with concern. Admiral, with respect, we know very little about your people. Perhaps a smaller vessel for initial meetings would be more appropriate. Mitchell's gaze shifted to Krell. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and Elena recognized the look of someone assessing a potential threat out of pure instinct. Ambassador, your distress call indicated an extinction-level threat. We came prepared to fight a war, not conduct diplomatic pleasantries. My ship has the tactical facilities we need. You can bring as many security personnel as makes you comfortable. The casual confidence in Mitchell's voice was almost unsettling. Elena had spent months watching the Coalition's best military minds struggle with the reclaimers. This human admiral seemed to view the situation as routine. Agreed, Elena said before Krell could object further. We will arrive within the hour. The shuttle ride to the Indomitable gave Elena her first real look at a human warship. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Coalition's largest carrier. The hull was scarred from previous battles, patched and repaired but showing no signs of cosmetic restoration. Weapons turrets covered every surface, their barrels tracking the Coalition shuttle with automated precision. It was not a ship built for show. It was a ship built to survive and destroy. The docking bay was surprisingly utilitarian. No decorative elements. No comfortable waiting areas. Just efficient space designed to move personnel and equipment quickly. When the shuttle doors opened, Elena immediately noticed the gravity. It was heavier here, pulling at her with uncomfortable force. She saw several of her delegation struggling to adjust, their bodies not designed for such conditions. Admiral Mitchell waited at the bottom of the ramp, flanked by 2 officers. Captain James Rodriguez, her tactical officer, was a compact man with alert eyes that never stopped moving. Dr. Lisa Park, their chief medical officer, carried scanning equipment and watched the Coalition delegates with scientific curiosity rather than fear. Welcome to the Indomitable, Mitchell said. I apologize for the gravity. We can adjust it in the briefing room, but it takes time. How heavy is it here? Elena asked, feeling her muscles strain with each step. 1.2 standard Earth gravities, Captain Rodriguez answered. Comfortable for us. We can bring it down to zero point 0.8 for the briefing if needed. Elena did some quick mental calculations. Earth was classified as a high-gravity world in the restricted files. What humans considered comfortable would be exhausting for most coalition species over extended periods. Please, she said, trying to keep the strain from her voice. They were led through corridors that felt more like military trenches than spaceship passages. Everything was reinforced. Every junction had blast doors. Every section could be sealed independently. This was a ship designed to keep fighting even when torn apart. The walls showed signs of previous damage, welded plates covering breaches, burn marks testament to fires that had been contained. The briefing room was large and dominated by a holographic display system far more sophisticated than anything on coalition vessels. As promised, the gravity decreased to more manageable levels. Elena felt her body relax slightly as the pressure eased. Mitchell gestured to seats around the main display. Show me everything you have on the reclaimers, she said without preamble. Tactical capabilities, attack patterns, ship configurations, weapon systems. All of it. Elena activated her data pad and transferred the files. The holographic display populated with months of desperate intelligence gathering. Mitchell, Rodriguez, and Park studied the information in silence. Elena watched their faces, trying to gauge their reactions. She saw no fear. No shock. Just professional assessment. After several minutes, Rodriguez spoke. They use organic technology. Interesting. Their ships regenerate damage over time, which explains why conventional tactics failed. You cannot wear them down because they heal faster than you can hurt them. Krell's lights pulsed. We discovered this after many losses. Our weapons damage their hulls but they repair within hours. Sometimes faster. Park leaned forward, manipulating the display to focus on close-up scans of reclaimer vessels. The biological components are highly efficient but they have a weakness. All biological systems need energy. They are probably feeding on stellar radiation or dark matter, but interrupt that feeding process and they become vulnerable. Mitchell nodded. Rodriguez, theoretical engagement strategy. The tactical officer pulled up a star map and began marking positions. We split them up. Forced them to divide their fleet. Hit hard and fast at multiple points. They can regenerate but not if we destroy them completely in the first strike. Overwhelming firepower focused on individual targets rather than sustained bombardment across their whole line. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. You are talking about aggressive assault tactics. The coalition fleet is not designed for that. We defend. We protect. We do not attack. Mitchell finally looked directly at Elena. That is why you are losing. The statement was not cruel, just matter of fact. Your ships are optimized for defensive operations. Energy shields, long-range scanning, escape pod capacity. All good things. But war is not fought by defending. War is won by destroying the enemy's ability to fight. Ambassador Krell's form flickered with agitation. We are a peaceful civilization. We have maintained peace for 3,000 years through diplomacy and defensive deterrence. And now you face an enemy that does not care about your peace, Rodriguez said. They do not want your territory. They do not want tribute. They just want you dead. Defense alone cannot win against that. The room fell silent. Elena knew they were right. The coalition had spent so long avoiding war that they had forgotten how to truly fight one. They built ships to minimize casualties, to protect civilians, to avoid escalation. Noble goals that meant nothing against an enemy that recognized no limits. What do you propose? Elena asked quietly. Mitchell stood and began manipulating the holographic display. Your fleet will need significant reorganization. We spread them out, prevent the reclaimers from rolling through your entire line at once. Human ships take forward positions. Our armor can handle their weapons better than your shields. She continued, marking positions and trajectories. We engage at medium range, not long range. Force them to commit to close combat where their regeneration advantage is meaningless because we will be destroying ships completely, not just damaging them. And my people? Elena asked. Many of our species cannot handle high-gravity maneuvers. Our bodies are not as durable as yours. Park spoke up. I have been reviewing your crew physiology data. You are correct. High acceleration would kill or severely injure most coalition personnel. We will need to limit joint maneuvers to 3 gravities maximum. Our people can operate at that level indefinitely. Your crews will need to use inertial dampeners at maximum capacity. 3 gravities. Elena had seen the footage of human fighter pilots pulling 6, 7, even 8 gravities in combat situations. They were literally built for war in a way coalition species were not. It was sobering and strangely reassuring at the same time. Mitchell continued the briefing, laying out a battle plan that would have been considered impossibly aggressive by coalition standards. Hit-and-run strikes. Flanking maneuvers. Targeted destruction of enemy command vessels. Every tactic designed to maximize damage while minimizing exposure. It was brutal, efficient, and completely foreign to everything the coalition had practiced for millennia. As the briefing progressed, other human officers joined via holographic link. Commander Patricia Hayes of the carrier Defiant discussed fighter deployment strategies. Colonel Marcus Chin outlined boarding action protocols for captured reclaimer vessels. Every human officer brought the same calm professionalism, as if planning to fight overwhelming odds was just another day's work. Elena found herself both impressed and unsettled. These were people who had evolved on a world where everything wanted to kill them. Where survival meant constant vigilance and aggression. They had taken that evolutionary pressure and refined it into a military doctrine that was terrifyingly effective. The coalition had avoided contact with Earth for good reason. Humans were dangerous. But right now, dangerous was exactly what they needed. After 3 hours of planning, Mitchell called for a break. Dr. Park approached Elena with a medical scanner. May I? She asked. I want to make sure the gravity changes are not causing you harm. Elena nodded, and Park ran the scanner over her. The human doctor frowned slightly at the readings. You are under significant physical stress. Your cardiovascular system is working overtime to compensate for the gravity changes. I recommend you rest soon. I will rest when we are not facing extinction, Elena said. Park smiled slightly. I understand. But a commander who collapses from exhaustion is no use to anyone. Take care of yourself, Commander Vasquez. We need you sharp for what is coming. It was a small gesture of concern, but it meant something. Elena had worried that humans would be cold, mechanical in their approach to war. But Park's words reminded her that these were people too. They just happened to be people forged in the harshest conditions imaginable. Mitchell returned with Captain Rodriguez. Commander Vasquez, I need you to understand something. We are here to help. But helping means we do things our way. Your fleet will need to follow human tactical doctrine. Your officers will need to accept orders from human commanders. This is not a merger of equals. This is a rescue operation, and rescues require authority. Elena met Mitchell's gaze. She saw no arrogance there. Just pragmatism. The humans had come across the galaxy to fight someone else's war. They deserved operational control. I will inform the coalition leadership. There will be resistance. There always is, Mitchell said. But we do not have time for committee decisions. The reclaimers will be here in less than 30 hours. Either you trust us to lead this fight or we cannot help you. The ultimatum was clear. Elena thought of all the refugees crowding the stations. All the worlds already lost. All the children who would die if they failed. I will make them understand, she said. Good, Mitchell replied. Rodriguez will work with your tactical staff to reorganize the fleet. Park will coordinate medical preparations. I need to brief my ship captains. We reconvene in 6 hours to finalize the battle plan. As Elena and her delegation prepared to return to their shuttle, she paused at the docking bay entrance. Admiral Mitchell, why did you come? Earth is thousands of light years from here. This is not your war. Mitchell was silent for a moment, and Elena saw something flicker in her eyes. Perhaps memory. Perhaps pain. Because someone has to, she finally said. Because we know what it is like to face extinction and have nowhere to turn. Because in the dark times of Earth's history, we wished someone would come help us. Now we are that someone for you. The answer was simple and profound. Elena nodded her thanks and boarded the shuttle. As they pulled away from the Indomitable, she looked back at the human fleet. 37 ships against 300. Impossible odds by any rational calculation. But humans had not become a spacefaring species by accepting impossible. They had climbed from the bottom of a gravity well that should have trapped them forever. They had survived a world that killed 99% of everything born on it. They had looked at the stars and said we belong there too. Maybe, Elena thought, just maybe, they had called the right people after all.